This is Alex. Alex is one of my characters that I use in my books, in my animations and in my presentations. Alex was created in Inkscape, and because Alex is going to be used for animation, Alex is also a puppet. So when we create these kind of images in Inkscape, one of the first things that we need to remember is that each part of the image is actually created separately in these little folders called layers. Now, each part of Alex is actually made up of different shapes which are filled, and then in the actual Inkscape area you can actually just place them together. So by combining all of the shapes together, you make what looks like a much more complicated image. Now all of these shapes, they are created using this tool on the left hand side, and we bring those shapes in, and if we want to create something a little bit more complicated like Alex's t-shirt or the shoes, then we change our shape into a path. I'm not going to show you how to do that in this video, but there is a separate tutorial on how to do this step by step. So here we have two versions of Alex. Now this one on the left hand side can't move because actually this one, they're all just one single image. And what I've done is I've shown all of my layers in Inkscape and I have exported them. However, we also have Alex on the right hand side, but this one on the right hand side has been set up for animation. Now when we want to create something for animation, we want to turn them into a puppet. Now to turn Alex into a puppet, what I've done is to start to pull poor Alex to pieces into all of the different sections that I want to have moving. So if I want Alex's eyes to move, I'm going to have to move those out. I want to be able to tap a foot, so I'm going to get that and put that as a separate image. And you can see these have been split up, especially where you see joints like elbows and wrists and your shoulders, mouths as well, completely separate. And here I'm actually not going to do any kind of walking animation with Alex, so therefore, because I just want a foot to tap and I want the arms to move and the eyes to move, I'm going to split them up, and each one of these separate things you can see here is going to be saved as a separate image. The other thing I want to do is to add an extra mouth so that I can have a tongue out or maybe have an open mouth for talking. So by saving each part as a different image, we can animate these a little bit like where we move our own joints. Now you don't have to separate the eyes, but if you do want to animate them, then obviously try and make sure that you've got all of the bits that are going to move as separate images. So let's have a look and see how to take that image and export it so you're just saving one particular part. So here we have Alex, and these are all of the layers that has been used to create him. Now remember, in iMedia you are not expected to create characters with this amount of detail. So if you are creating a character which is a lot more simplistic, that's absolutely fine. The only reason I'm showing you this is to show you the kind of detail you can create with Inkscape. So I'm going to have a look inside Alex's head. So I'm going to use this and expand that layer, and you can see there that the head is actually made out of a mouth, a left eye, a right eye, and even the left eye and right eye have their own individual sections. So if I was to create another pupil, you can see there that is that little section there. And I can move that around independently because every single one of the things that you can see here is just a shape which has been combined together. So when I wanted to save Alex's head, but I didn't want to have the eyes, what I did is I went over to the side here and got rid of the eye by using this little eye over here and closing it. So there we go. There is a head. I didn't want the mouth either because I want to animate the mouth. So again, close that down. And then I don't want the rest of the body. So the t-shirt gets closed down. So you can see there's a bit of a torso behind, but you don't need to have any waist because that's covered by the t-shirt. And again, closing all of this. So everything you can see is now completely invisible, even though it looks like the paper that we're creating, the canvas, is really big. But what you can do is once you have hidden those layers, you can come all the way over here to export. Now, if you don't have export over here already, you can go to File and Export. That will create that tab up there for you. Now, normally you'll see that Page is selected at the top. Now, we don't want to have the whole page because that's quite big, and then we're going to have to crop it, and that's going to be annoying. So what we're going to do is we go over to Selection. The alternative is to go to Document. So Selection or Document, depending on which version you're using, and you can see there it crops it all the way down to just the layers which you've allowed to be visible. At that point, what we do is we give it a name down here, and you can also select the folder that you want to go to. So if you wanted this to go into a completely different folder, and maybe save this somewhere specific on your computer, you can select that there. Now, of course, I wouldn't want to be calling this Posable Alex. I might want to call this Alex blank head. And at that point, you're ready to export. Now, make sure that you are exporting as a PNG. So a PNG file will also allow you to have all that transparency behind you, so you don't have like a big white block around you. At that point, you're ready to click export and then go back into your layers and then start hiding this part and unhiding others. So for me to just export the eye without the head, I might have to open up. There we go. There's the eye, and hide everything else. Oh, off goes the hair. There we go. Each ear is done. I had a pathway there. And there's just the eye. And again, you can do exactly the same thing. Once you have unhidden the bit you want to export, or you want to turn into its own image, and hidden everything else, go to export. You can see there, make sure it's all cropped over there. Give it a new name. So Alex, let's call this Alex Left Eye. And export. Now, you saw me in the other one actually export the eye as all the different pieces, and the reason for doing that is because I actually want to be able to move the pupils around. So if you want to just have like static eyes, absolutely fine. If you want to be able to move them around so they look like they're looking around, export the iris separately, and you do that back in your layers. And of course, when you've created these, this is our left eye. There we go. You would get rid of the pupil, iris. And I actually do an iris outline. You don't have to do that. That just made it a little bit different. So there you get the white of the eye. And then once you've exported that, you can come back, get rid of those, and then pop that one open and then export it separately. So that is how to export each of your individual parts of your puppet from Inkscape, making sure that they're all ready then to put into Wick Editor. So here we are in Wick Editor, and I've actually done a few things before I got here, and that was to import all of those different sections into the asset library. Now remember that you can do that by using the upload assets, go and select your individual images and put them into the Wick Editor. So I've given this a name at the top here called Alex in Wick. And I've also taken each one of those puppet pieces, put them together, resized them, But I've also done something slightly different to what you might expect, which is to create a different layer for each one. Now, down here at the bottom of Wick Editor, what you can do is to bring that up, and you'll see I have quite a few layers. Now, the first thing that I have done is to create individual layers, and I've given them over here in the inspector a name that matches the puppet piece that I'm going to put with it. So remember, I took my pupils and my eyes and my mouth and the head, and I had those quite separate because I want to be able to move them around. And I then have a left hand, a right hand, so I can move the wrists. I have the shoe down here, so I want to be able to tap my foot. The body, now the body you can see here, I have locked. Now the reason I have locked that, the way you do that is just to click the padlock. It's because I don't want the body to move for this particular animation. That stops me from moving it by accident. And then I've got my right, my left arms from the bottom and the top. So the top of the arm and the bottom of the arms. I'm going to push this down a little bit just while we create a very small animation. Now I'm actually going to zoom out a little bit. There we go. So you can see Alex is there. Now I have a frame for each one of these, but I have his arms in a very, very strange position. So I'm actually going to edit this a little bit. I find it easier to edit these by pulling the frames down and zooming in. Now, one of the things in Wick Editor at the moment that you can't do is to move this pivot point. So you do have to be a little bit careful about where you end up. So I'm going to just move the arm and point them down a little bit. There we go, just move it into the right place. That does disconnect the hand, which is looking a little bit strange. So this one here at the moment, because I have the palms out, I'm actually going to place this side. Take this one, move it, and that looks a lot better. So same thing, let's just put the arm down a bit. So this would be sort of our starting pose. And actually, in the way that our starting pose happens, his hands look a little bit strange. I'm just going to make them a little bit smaller. That's a bit better. Maybe not that small. There we go. So that is our starting pose. I'm going to pull up my frames, and you can recenter. If you click the recenter button, that's going to allow you to see everything. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the arm up so it looks like it's waving per second. So if I click on the title up here, you can see that we're doing 12 frames per second. So therefore, if I aim to have the arm up in 1 second and then down in another, that's quite slow, but it will allow us to see how things are working. So 12 frames per second will mean that I'm going to create a frame here. What I'm going to do is to extend absolutely everything. I'm going to start by extending all of my hand and my shoes. So if I'm going to bring all of this over here, like that, absolutely all of it's going to be a full second at this stage. Here we go. So I'm just dragging all of the frames along. So these are all of the different body parts. This does seem like an awful lot, but to move a person, there are lots of different moving pieces. And even for this one, you know, there are no knees or things like that. So this is quite a simple model. Now, what I want to do is I want to move the arm up. Now, in order to do that, I need to take the hand. So make sure I've got the right one there. So because I move them around, I might want to rename them, but at this stage I'm going to click on them. That one there, I'm going to do this thing called adding a tween. Now this tween is going to go all the way over to the frame over here. So I'm going to put a tween there, and you can see it's turned into a dotted line. This part of the arm is also going to need to move. So if I click on that one, there it is, left arm, add a tween, and the top part of the arm as well. There we go, and add a tween. Now you can see all the ones that have a tween have these blue squares around them. And what that means is I'm going to start with my right arm up here. I'm going to put myself on the final part of that frame, take that arm and move it up. Let's put it into the right. That's probably a bit much. There we go. Okay, put it into the right position. Now, I'm also going to need to do this with the bottom of the arm. So I'm going to click on that next dotted line. If it's a dotted line, what you have here is nothing actually happening, even though we've said there's a tween. Whereas this one, where there's a solid line, Wick has actually put in all of the different frames to make it go from being all the way at the bottom there to all the way at the top. And you can actually test that by moving your timeline. So there we go. We're sort of disconnecting the arm and bringing it all the way up. So the last place I want my left arm here is to go up like that. There we go. So you can double check. You can see there's a solid line. And oh, it's close. I might need to consider where that is going, because at the minute it doesn't look quite right. So you might want to just sort of double check. You can see there it looks a little bit strange. Now, if it does look strange like that, you may have to put in a tween about halfway through and then do the rest. I'm going to accept that that looks a bit strange for now, just to show you the tweening. Now the hand, I want it to spin, but actually end up like that. So let's see what happens. Can we do that? So all of these green ones here, they're not actually moving. Anything with a solid line has a tween. Anything without a solid line, or if it has a dotted line, means you've added a tween, but you haven't actually moved anything. So let's see what that looks like as a loop. So there's a couple of strange bits going on with the elbow, so I might want to put something in the middle. So let's put about at 0.6. Now, if I add a tween at this point for the hand and the bottom of the arm, I don't need to do this for the top, because the top was fine, but the bottom of the arm looks a bit strange and the hand looks a bit strange as well. So I'm just going to take that out a second, put that over there. Bottom of the arm, I'm going to put that here so that it moves nice and steady. And the hand, there it is, I want it to be kind of there. So you can see now that's a little bit smoother, and now that's a bit smoother. So it looks like the elbow is not sort of disconnecting. So we start off by creating our tween where we want it from the start to the end, and then we can put some extra ones in the middle to make the whole thing a bit smoother. Now, if we wanted to then put that back down again, we can then go another second. So we're at 12 and we can go to 24 and bring absolutely everything out to 24. So we've now got 2 whole seconds. For your animation, you're probably looking at about 20 seconds. So remember, this is going to take some time. but it's certainly not going to take as long as if you do frame by frame. So I'm going to bring them all out. And this is one of the reasons why we use puppets, because you are looking at this as if it is one single image, but actually what you're doing is you are creating all the different puppet pieces and moving them together. So let's do this for the top of the arm to start off with, because that was the one that was moving nice and simply. So we've still got a tween. You can see the dotted lines. We can take our timeline all the way up to the end and just take that top arm and move it back down again. There we go, and there is our tween and our bottom arm. So there it is. Bring it back down, facing that way. And same for the hand, all the way down, so rotate it and place it back in the middle. There we go. But remembering we're probably going to have to do something in the middle so that we don't end up with something looking very strange. So about halfway through, about 18, what we're going to do is we're going to take that left arm, add a tween again, and same one for the hand, add another tween. So at this stage, do exactly what we did last time, move our hand out of the way, move the arm back into a kind of right position there, so you've actually got an elbow rather than the arm going off in a strange place. You can click on the hand. That will actually also select the right frame as well, and put that back onto the wrist. So now nothing disconnects, and hopefully there we go, nothing disconnects, and we're ready to look at our 2-second animation by pressing play. And now we have a moving arm with an elbow and a wrist. So that is how you use a puppet in Wick Editor.